Communism is a failed system, universally failed system. And I don't see socialism as a very useful substitute.
That was President Biden making his strongest comments to date about communism and the protests that have erupted in Cuba in response to that communist regime. Joining us now to discuss, Julio Antonio del Marmol, an international intelligence advisor and Cuban freedom fighter. He also has personal ties to the island nation, as well as our panelists, Bobby Epperly and Jessie Jane Duff as well. So now that we're all here, wonderful to see everyone. Julio, I want to start with you. We just heard from President Biden there. He spoke about communism's failure. But what comes next? What could he do to assist Cubans currently living under the communist regime?
Actually, thank you very much for you guys having me in your program today.
Sure.
I've been doing this from when I'm 12 years old. And I see different presidents handle Cuba a different way. I can tell you one thing. What this president is doing right now is the worst any other president ever do before. What the whole situation, what's going on around our country right now is very similar to what I left behind in Cuba. But to answer your question, the proper thing to do is support these people is in the street, and they not screaming for vaccine, they are screaming for freedom. And freedom has got only one name. You cannot disguise that. And if the president is needed sympathy, just we don't asking for extreme sacrifices or anything, just a little sympathy. Or what he had to do is call the United Nations and say, let's send some troops to Cuba behind the United Nations, and let's be observing what in reality occur in Cuba. Yeah. And don't try to blame vaccines or the United States of America or the CIA like they always get away with.
Right. Clearly, calls for freedom, for liberty as well, speaking out against the oppressive regime here. Julio, maybe you can give us a better understanding as to what is actually at risk for those who are protesting in the streets of Cuba right now by speaking out.
You don't even have an idea, because, and I not expect any individual born in this country understand the magnitude of the evil that these people possess. The Cuban regime has been killing people for thousands. I got a friend of mine spent 20 years in jail, the third commander in the revolution, Liber Matos, because he sent a letter to Fidel in the beginning of the revolution telling, please, my friend, don't turn the Cuban revolution, the beautiful revolution, into a socialist or communist system, because this is not what the Cuban people want, and it's not what the people died in the revolution for. And he put it for 20 years in jail, and one of his best friends. Imagine what happened to those people today, what they risk to go to the streets and reveal to the entire world what they're suffering, and expose it internationally. They can go from, take it to a concentration camp, what they call it re-education camps. They can put it in jail, and the extremely harsh conditions. And the best scenario, this is what I'm telling you now, the worst scenario and the best scenario. The worst scenario, they ended dead, because I have information in the past 24 hours that they got some snipers and top to some buildings, and they've been shooting some of the protesters from those buildings.
Yeah, so Julio, what you're describing is, quite frankly, it could be a life or death situation in some of these cases here. Bobby, I want to go to you. What can the White House do to protect the freedoms, the rights of these protesters here? How can they assist them? We've heard calls for internet access. Is that something you'd like to see?
Well, I'd just like to see the Biden administration take this situation seriously, because we've had decades of communist oppression. And as Julio said, people are dying. And when you see people step up and protest for freedom, they don't just do that on a whim. They do that because they are oppressed, because they are suffering. And we've seen it for decade after decade after decade. Biden seemed clueless in that clip that you played earlier. They need to maintain the sanctions, put the pressure on the Cuban government to change. AOC came out, BLM came out, actually blaming America for this decades-long suffering, actually calling out America for what is going on under communism. They need to speak and do something a little bit differently. We need to keep the pressure on. We need to help these people. When you get this critical mass, and this is what I call it, a critical mass of people actually fighting for freedom, actually wanting freedom, we need to step in and help as much as we can, because that is where change happens. That's where communism can get overthrown with the will of the people. We see those people ready to roll.
Okay, unfortunately out of time. Jesse Jane, we'll get you on the other side of the break. Julio Antonio del Marmol, thank you so much for joining us, sharing that update. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and I hope we can see a free Cuban very soon.
Thank you.